So we're on the south coast of the Isle of Wight on Ventnor Downs, kind of looking southwest, panning around looking southeast. So this is chalk grassland owned by the National Trust, who manage it superbly well as far as I'm concerned. And so it's got goats, feral goats on here at the moment, which I think they put on to browse these shrubby plants and also to keep holm oaks under control. So holm oaks are, well, they'd rapidly inundate this area because there's a big, again, National Trust owned holm oak forest just over there. But the goats will browse it off as far as I can tell. They also, at least until a few years ago, had cattle on here every so often. I assume they still do put cattle on here. But really I think it's an interesting kind of landscape where you've got south facing parched chalk grasslands, pretty lush actually this year, and kind of scrubby savanna-y type bits down in the vales. And my question really is that this is clearly kind of anthropogenic chalk grassland created under the influence of grazing livestock, but this area would have had aurochs back in the day before we drove them to extinction. So the question is, would the aurochs give rise to the same kind of habitat, assemblage of plants and invertebrates and stuff that you see here? And therefore is this anthropogenic chalk grassland basically a good analogue for old kind of natural ancestral grasslands on chalk that we would have seen in this part of the UK when there were aurochs around? And I personally think yes. There's lots of rock rows, loads of rock rows. So yeah, I see no reason to suppose that the this kind of anthropogenic chalk grassland isn't basically the same as natural grassland would have looked. You know, aurochs would have been, well, they're cattle basically, and they kind of need this kind of herbaceous vegetation to browse, as well as browsing on these shrubby species like this hawthorn with all the thorns on it to protect it from aurochs. But yeah, so aurochs would have required herbaceous vegetation at ground level like this in open habitats, enough biomass of it, so out in the sun, as well as more shrubby habitat. Here are the goats. My guess is a combination of cattle and goats are probably doing much the same as aurochs would have done back in the day. I'd rather they weren't goats, to be honest, but they do a very good job. These ones are chomping through the thicker grasses. Don't know what grass this is, Deschampia or something. It's been a long time since I did a condition assessment on chalk grassland. I used to be able to identify all this stuff. I still know rock rose when I see it. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, so this is special area of conservation, I think, for early gentian Anglica, gentianella, is it? Anglica. Yeah, whether this area would have been open, kept open by aurochs prior to agriculture arriving is anybody's guess. But if it was open, I think it would have looked, the grasslands would have looked much like it does now. At least when the climatic conditions were similar to what we have now. Bond Church down there.